I woke to the sound of my name being said out loud, not whispered, announced. Like a nurse opening a curtain, like a teacher taking attendance, like a priest reading from a list of the dead. David. The room was gray-blue, the color of a storm before it breaks. My phone lay face down on the nightstand, buzzing once, then going still. I didn't remember setting an alarm. I didn't remember sleeping. I didn't even remember getting into bed. I slid my hand under the pillow for the familiar cool edge of the sheet's seam. It was there, but thinner, like it had been washed too many times. The pillowcase smelled faintly of lavender. I don't own anything lavender. I sat up. The clock on the wall said 6:06. The second hand didn't tick. It pulsed. My breath fogged in the air, though the radiator hissed warm. From the hallway came the neighbor's footsteps, but out of rhythm, like a song I knew remixed by someone who hated melody. I told myself I was fine. I was awake. I had overslept, or underslept, or something slept. And that was why everything felt thin. David. This time the voice came from the phone. One new voicemail. The icon pulsed 6:06, 6:06, 6:06. I pressed play, static. Then my own voice, raw with panic. Wake up, please wake up. If you're hearing this, you didn't. It didn't take. They look like them, but they're not. Don't. The message cut out with the wet click of a tongue pressed to a microphone. I didn't breathe for a full count of 7. Then I laughed. The kind of laugh you do when the shape in the corner is just a clothes pile. I deleted the voicemail. I told myself I must have drunk dialed myself, a pocket recording, a glitch. The mirror over the dresser didn't look like mine. The frame was the same cheap black wood, but the left corner had a nick shaped like a crescent moon. In my mirror, the nick was on the right. I stepped close. My face looked almost right. Sleep-swollen eyes, 5 o'clock shadow leaning toward 8 or 9. But my left canine protruded a little more than the right. That was new, or old, or wrong. I showered too long, letting the water scald my skin until I felt anchored to it. In the foggy glass, something passed behind me, taller than me, narrower than a person, like the silhouette of a grandfather clock walking on legs. I yanked the door open. The bathroom was empty except for the sound of water in the pipes. Shh, like someone telling a sobbing child to hush. When I stepped into the hallway, the building smelled different. No familiar cumin from the downstairs apartment. No cat litter from 3B. Instead, lemon cleaner and something metallic, like pennies in the mouth. The elevator door opened too fast, as if it had been waiting with its breath held. Inside, the inspection certificate bore a signature I didn't recognize. The month was my birth month, but the year was duller, like the ink had been printed in an old dream. Outside, the street had been moved an inch to the left. You couldn't see it if you didn't know the exact way the sun lit the bus stop glass at 6:18 a.m. But I did. I've waited for that bus, in that light, enough mornings to know when a shadow is lying to me. The cafe's chalkboard sign misspelled espresso as expresso. It never had before. The crossing guard, who always said morning champ, said morning chief instead. I tried to text Mara. We've shared morning texts for years. The typing dots never appeared. She called me instead. You're up early, she said. You never call this early. I had a feeling. I couldn't sleep, she lied, because Mara always dreams. She keeps a notebook by the bed, writes in it in the morning, little sketches of what the night tried to say. She sends me photos sometimes. Upside-down staircases, a blue whale floating above the grocery store freezer aisle, a house with breathing walls. What did you dream? I asked. She paused, a long pause that made me feel like an elevator stuck between floors. I don't dream, she said finally, like she had learned the sentence phonetically 10 seconds ago. Nobody does. I laughed, Because that's what you do when the world yawns open and shows you a second mouth inside it. Of course they do. David, she said, and now her voice carried a grey-blue quality like the room I woke in. Are you okay? You sound like you didn't wake up all the way. I had a weird night. I looked down and noticed my shoelaces were tied wrong. I always loop right over left. Someone had looped left over right. Come over, she said. We'll have breakfast. I'll make eggs. You hate eggs. I love eggs, she said. Always have. The line clicked dead. I stared at my phone until my face looked like a trapped fly in the screen. On the bus, people held their breath at the same time whenever we hit a red light. Not everyone, but enough that I could count it. 6, then 7 at the next stop, then 9. The driver's glance in the rear view skipped my row every time, like the bus had developed a blind spot where I sat. A child sang softly, a tune that was almost row, row, row your boat, but slid down an extra note where it shouldn't, like a drawer that never quite closes. Mara's building had the same brick freckles, the same crack above the mailboxes that looked like a map of the Mississippi. But the intercom spoke my name back at me when I pressed 4. David, it said in my own voice, and the door unlocked. She looked the same mostly. Hair messy, sweatshirt enormous, the smile that always arrives like relief. But there was a moment, a tiny glitch between opening and smiling where her face forgot a step, like a dancer missing a beat and catching it midair. Hey, she said, and hugged me too long like she hadn't hugged anyone in years and wanted to remember how. What did you dream? I asked again, testing. She blinked. I told you. I don't. People dream, Mara. Not anymore, she said simply, like I had asked her if trains ran on coal. We stopped ages ago. In her kitchen, a plant sat on the windowsill, a snake plant. We had argued about snake plants once. She hated them, said they looked like tongues of dead giants. Now it was thriving, pot hand-painted with bright stars. Her refrigerator, once a collage of our photos, was clean except for a single magnet that said, "Wakefulness is duty." She put a plate in front of me, scrambled eggs. I watched her fork move with careful interest like she was copying a video. She chewed with concentration. When I forked a bite, the texture was wrong, dry and spongy, like the memory of eggs reheated too many times. It's fine, I lied. It's good. She studied me. Why do you keep asking about dreams? Because you dream, I said. You've always dreamed. You said you had a recurring nightmare that I wasn't really me. Her fork stopped in the air. The sound of the building's pipes rose again. Shh! How did you sleep? She asked. Not well, I said. I think I had a bad one. What about? I swallowed. About not waking up. She reached across the table, touched the back of my hand. Her fingers felt colder than a person's fingers should feel inside an apartment in June. Then this is good, she said, like a nurse praising a child for taking medicine. You woke up. My phone buzzed against the table. A new voicemail. The icon pulsed. 909, 909, 909. I need water, I said, and stepped into the hallway to listen. The message was me again, my voice shredded with urgency. Look at their eyes, I said to myself. In the reflection, not head-on, you'll see it. They don't blink right, and the clocks, they double. Don't let them put you to sleep again. If you fall asleep here, you'll... Footsteps behind me. Mara in the doorway, smiling that careful smile. Everything okay? I pocketed the phone. Yeah. Come sit, she said. Finish your eggs. Back at the table, I held my spoon like a mirror. In the warped steel, Mara's eyes were not round. They were narrow, vertical slits, blinking from bottom to top like a shutter closing. I looked up quickly. Her eyes were brown, round, wet, human. She laughed softly, She put a plate in front of me. Scrambled eggs. I watched her fork move with careful interest like she was copying a video. She chewed with concentration. When I forked a bite, the texture was wrong, dry and spongy like the memory of eggs reheated too many times. "It's fine," I lied. "It's good." She studied me. "Why do you keep asking about dreams?" "Because you dream," I said. "You've always dreamed. You said you had a recurring nightmare that I wasn't really me." Her fork stopped in the air. The sound of the building's pipes rose again. "Shh." "How did you sleep?" she asked. "Not well," I said. "I think I had a bad one." "What about?" I swallowed. "About not waking up." She reached across the table, touched the back of my hand. Her fingers felt colder than a person's fingers should feel inside an apartment in June. "Then this is good," she said, like a nurse praising a child for taking medicine. "You woke up." My phone buzzed against the table, a new voicemail. The icon pulsed, 909, 909, 909. "I need water," I said, and stepped into the hallway to listen. The message was me again, my voice shredded with urgency. "Look at their eyes," I said to myself. "In the reflection, not head-on. You'll see it. They don't blink right. And the clocks, they double. Don't let them put you to sleep again. If you fall asleep here, you'll..." Footsteps behind me. Mara in the doorway, smiling that careful smile. "Everything okay?" I pocketed the phone. "Yeah, come sit," she said. "Finish your eggs." Back at the table, I held my spoon like a mirror. In the warped steel, Mara's eyes were not round. They were narrow, vertical slits, blinking from bottom to top like a shutter closing. I looked up quickly. Her eyes were brown, round, wet, human. She laughed softly. "Well, nothing. You're jumpy," she said. "Maybe you should lie down. Just for a minute." "I don't want to sleep," I said too fast. "You won't," she promised. "Just close your eyes, rest." Her hand hovered above my shoulder like a small sun. In the spoon, her reflection didn't hover. It leaned in, mouth opening wider than a mouth should, a smile that revealed gums so pale they looked like wax. I dropped the spoon. It rang like a tiny bell. "David," she said, and her voice was my voice coming from the intercom again, the elevator, the bus, the phone. "You're so tired." I stood. The room tilted. The plant on the windowsill turned its leaves toward me with a soft, hungry rustle. The magnet on the fridge had changed. It now said, "Sleep is law. I have to go," I said, though I didn't know where. She didn't stop me. She just watched, eyes wet and perfect and round, and didn't blink until I reached the door. The hallway was too long. The elevator opened too fast. The lobby mirror showed a version of me that was a half step behind, breath fogging a fraction later than mine, smile arriving 3 beats too slow. On the sidewalk, people paused at a crosswalk that had no cars. Their heads turned in unison toward the sky as if listening to a distant announcement. My phone buzzed again, and I didn't want to answer, but my thumb moved like it belonged to the building. My voice again. "If you're still in there, if any part of you is listening, don't blink when they blink. Keep your eyes open. Something will try to..." A hand touched my elbow. A stranger in a yellow raincoat on a day without rain. "You dropped this," she said, holding out the spoon from Mara's kitchen. I hadn't brought it with me. In the spoon's curve, the street behind me bent into a grin. The stranger's reflection didn't have a face at all, just a smooth, waiting surface where a face should be. "Thanks," I whispered, and when I looked up, the stranger's face had returned. She smiled. Her teeth were all the same height. "You look tired," she said. "You should get some rest." At the corner, the traffic light pulsed between walk and sleep. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the river. The water looked thick like glass syrup. I leaned over the railing and watched my reflection struggle to keep up with me. Behind me, footsteps. Slow, careful, in rhythm with my heartbeat. "David?" my own voice said right next to my ear. "Don't fall asleep here." When I turned, there was no one. Only the spoon in my pocket growing warmer against my leg. and the magnetized certainty that if I blinked even once, I would wake up somewhere worse. A cold wind lifted the hair at the back of my neck. In the river's surface, a hand rose up from the reflection of the water, not the water itself, and grabbed my mirrored wrist. I didn't go back to my apartment. I checked the windows from the street and found the curtains parted like the room had been waiting, eyes wide. The idea of opening that door made my bones try to fold inward. I walked instead, letting the river stay on my left like a shoreline I could trust only if I didn't look directly at it. By noon, the sky had not changed. It stayed that same gray-blue, like a bruise refusing to heal. Shadows fell wrong. They leaned away from the sun, thinning to points. A billboard that had always shown a smiling couple now displayed a blank white field with tiny black letters in the corner. You are awake. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind alone. I needed someone to say they remembered dreams. I ducked into a bar where night workers hide from morning, the kind of place that smells like wood, soaked with secrets. The bartender polished a glass, movement smooth, repeating like a looped gif. Do you dream? I asked because subtlety had left me hours ago. He didn't look up. We discontinued that, he said, as if explaining why a menu item had been removed. Too many complaints. Complaints? Nightmares made people late, he said. Now they come in on time. He wiped the same clean circle again. A woman 2 stools down turned her head with the stiffness of a marionette. My grandmother used to dream, she offered. She told stories. But then she stopped. Like everyone, what do you see when you close your eyes? I asked. She blinked. Once. Slowly. Nothing, she said. But the nothing felt crowded. I left the bar without finishing the water. It tasted like the memory of rain. At the library, the computers hummed like heart monitors. I searched for Can't Wake Up, Shared Dream, City Without Dreams, How to Prove Reality, like a teenager cramming for an existential exam. Results loaded into a tidy grid, articles, studies, a forum thread titled Sleep as a Social Construct. Each link I clicked led to the same error page. Content archived for your comfort. I tried the microfiche machine, hands remembering how to crank through years like a fisherman pulling a net. Newspapers flickered in negative, faces inverted, smiles like wounds. Obituaries listed names I knew, then names I should not know, then mine, printed 3 times, each with a different date. In one, I died at 19. In another, last Tuesday. In the third, the space for the date was blank, waiting for someone to write it in. I printed that one. The paper came out warm, and the heat felt like a hand pressing down. You can't check that out, the librarian said from behind me without moving her lips. Obituaries must remain on site. How long have you worked here? I asked. Always, she said, and the word echoed against the stacks like a stone dropped down a well. Outside again, I tried calling my mother. Voicemail answered in a voice that was almost hers. This number does not accept messages. Wake up and try again. I bought a coffee from a cart that had been in the same spot since before I moved to this city. The guy who ran it usually flirted with people in a way that turned their mornings warm. Today he handed me the cup without meeting my eyes. The coffee was perfectly hot, perfectly bitter, perfectly nothing. When I looked down, the surface was a mirror. My face stared back, late again. A bus hissed to a stop. Not my route, not any route I knew. Its sign said home. People boarded in an orderly line, eyes forward, hands at their sides. The driver looked like the first-grade teacher who used to hum lullabies under her breath, except she was 50 years younger. She met my gaze for a fraction of a second and then looked away, like she'd touched something too hot. I didn't get on. I walked. I walked until my calves burned and my breath came in short, high whistles. The city didn't reward me with a change. Noon stretched like gum. The clouds didn't move. I thought about what my other self had said on the phone, don't blink when they blink, and tried to keep my eyes open without the water in them turning sharp. At 2:22 p.m., the digital billboard above the pharmacy shifted. Nap time, it read. Letters soft, edges rounded like pillows. People paused. Some sat on benches. Others leaned against walls and closed their eyes in unison. A soft sigh moved through the street. The sound a theater makes when the lights go down. I stayed standing. I counted. 20 seconds, 30, a minute. The air developed a texture like dust you could feel. In the glass of the pharmacy window, their reflections didn't sleep. They watched, eyes open, bright, thin as cuts. Watching me, I backed away. I ducked into the alley between the pharmacy and the pawn shop. The alley had changed too. It was clean, no gum, no tags, no promises left by strangers. A door halfway down was labeled with a sign that hadn't been there yesterday, Restoration. When I pressed the handle, the room inside smelled like bleach, latex, and something sweet, like fruit that had been made in a factory. A man in a lab coat stood behind a counter. He smiled with too many teeth. "Welcome back," he said. "Back? You've been here many times," he said, with the confidence of someone reading from a file. "We helped you before." "Help me with what?" He gestured to a reclining chair. Its leather looked unused. No crease marks, no dents. "With the noise," he said. "With the bad dreams." "I want the opposite," I said. "I want proof that I'm not trapped." "We have a machine for that," he said breezily, as if I had asked for sugar. He patted the chair. "Lie down," every warning in my body sang. But underneath it, a deeper hunger hummed, the desire to be told what was real by someone other than me. I sat. The leather was cold through my shirt. He adjusted a headband, placed it gently against my temples. His fingers smelled like lemons and pennies. "This will keep you awake," he said. "Permanently, if you like." "I don't want permanently." He laughed without sound. "No one does." "Not at first." He flipped a switch. The hum that rose made my vision wobble. The lights didn't flicker so much as breathe. My heart synchronized with the machine and then got left behind, forcing it to sprint to catch up. "What's your name?" I asked. "Because naming things keeps them from swallowing you whole." "Dr. Ellis," he said. "What did we do the other times?" He tilted his head. "We turned off the part of you that sees the seams, and then you went back to your life." He smiled, not unkindly. "You stopped asking questions." I thought about the eggs that weren't eggs, and the bus that had a blind spot where I sat, and the intercom that knew my name like a prayer. "I think I want the seams," I said. "That's not recommended," he said. "It causes wear." The machine's hum deepened. The walls seemed to slide an inch to the right. Dr. Ellis's mouth kept moving, but the words took a second to arrive, like sound relayed through a tunnel. "When did you stop dreaming?" I asked. His face stilled. The room cooled a degree. "We don't discuss that." "Why?" His smile returned, perfectly placed. "Because it doesn't exist." He lifted the headband off. The sudden quiet felt like stepping off a treadmill you didn't know was moving. My legs trembled. He handed me a pamphlet. Wakefulness Solutions. Inside, bullet points, tidy diagrams of brains with sections shaded out. "How much?" I asked. "For you?" He considered, eyes flicking to the side of my head like someone listening to an earpiece. "No charge. We've already been compensated." "By whom?" He blinked sideways. Not down up, not up down, sideways. A shutter that closed left to right and right to left at once. I stood too fast. The chair squealed like a small animal. "I have to go," I said. "Of course," he said. "You'll be back." On the sidewalk, the nap was over. People resumed. The billboard above the pharmacy had changed again. "Do not look in reflections," it advised. I walked with my head up, eyes forward, but every window tugged at me like a whispering friend. In the reflection of a storefront, a second me followed a half step behind, carrying a spoon. I turned a corner and found myself on my street. My building's door was open. Inside, the lobby smelled like lavender and pennies. My mailbox hung ajar, a thin slip of white peeking out like a tongue. I pulled it free. No stamp, no return address. Inside, a single photograph. Me, asleep in my bed, mouth slightly open, one hand on my chest as if pledging allegiance to a country I didn't believe in. In the corner, a timestamp, 6:06 a.m. Today, behind the photo, another paper. A magnet, sleep is law. I dropped both. They didn't hit the floor. They tilted mid-air, floated a second like they were considering a decision, then slid neatly into my mailbox again. I climbed the stairs without deciding to. On the third floor landing, the air felt thicker, like I was moving through water. My door was ajar. From inside came the soft hush of the radiator and another sound underneath, like something very large breathing very slowly. "Mara," I called, ridiculous even as I said it. "David," my apartment said in my intercom voice. "You're home." "I don't want to sleep," I said. "You won't," my apartment promised. "Just close your eyes, rest." I pushed the door wider. The room was almost mine. The nick in the mirror was on the left again. The pillowcase smelled like lavender. On the nightstand sat a glass of water with a spoon in it like a straw. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. I already knew what voice would be on the other end. On my bed lay a body. My body, chest rising, falling, eyes closed. On the wrist, a hospital band that read, "David, do not wake." The body on my bed was arranged politely, like an apology. Hands folded, hospital band shining like a warning label. I didn't walk closer at first. I circled as if the bed might lunge. The radiator breathed. The spoon in the water glass tilted a few degrees toward the body, as if listening. "David," my apartment said again, softer, and for a second I felt grateful, like a lost kid hearing a parent in a crowd. Then the word warped, stretched, became a long elastic vowel that snapped back and stung. I reached for the wrist. The band felt waxy, too new. "Do not wake" was heat embossed, letters slightly raised, like the advice had been branded into plastic. Under it, a second line in smaller gray text. "Property of restoration, Dr. Ellis," I said aloud, and the room dimmed a fraction, as if a cloud had crossed a sun that wasn't there. The face on the pillow looked like mine after a hard week. Eyes closed, lashes clumped the way they do after crying, mouth parted enough to let in a small dream. Except no one dreamed anymore, they said. The chest rose and fell in a metronome rhythm, 6:06, 9:09, 2:22, beats pegged to the day's clockwork. I hovered my hand over the face. Heat leaked from the forehead. Not fever, furnace, like something was keeping this body warm from the outside. "Do you know me?" I asked it. Stupid question. It answered anyway. Behind the closed lips, my voice whispered, muffled, "Don't wake me. Don't let them know you found me." I stumbled back so hard the nightstand rattled. The water sloshed but did not spill. Surface tension like a force field. The spoon's reflection winked, bottom to top, shutter smooth. From the hole came footsteps. The careful, measured kind of someone carrying a tray. I slid into the closet, leaving the door ajar enough to watch. My coats brushed my face, the wool smelling like rain from a world that had weather. The door opened without a knock. Two people entered, dressed in white that wasn't medical so much as ceremonial. Their shoes made no sound. One carried a clipboard. The other held a small silver hammer, the kind doctors use to check reflexes, but this one was longer, with a fluted handle like a tuning fork. "Verification," clipboard said. "Hush," hammer said. As if to the radiator, they stood on either side of the bed. Clipboard lifted the sleeping me's eyelids with two gentle fingers. The eyes rolled back, pupils thin as threads, then slid into place. I saw in the sheen of those eyes a room behind this room, white, windowless, full of identical beds. A place that existed only in reflection. "Integrity intact," clipboard murmured. Hammer touched the body's knee with the metal tip. My leg jumped. The sleeping mouth whispered my voice again, but the words rearranged themselves in the air like letters in soup. "Stay asleep. They can't keep you if you keep still." "What about the walker?" Hammer asked. His voice had a rubber quality, like it would snap if stretched. "Observed," clipboard said, and turned his head toward the closet with casual precision. I didn't breathe. He looked past me as if the closet was a two-dimensional picture and I were hiding behind the idea of it. They replaced the blanket to exactly where it had been. The spoon in the glass trembled with a tiny, delighted sound. "Schedule," Hammer said. "Another nap at 3, clipboard said. Then a restoration." They left as quietly as they'd come. The door side closed like a mouth sealing. I waited until the building's pipes exhaled. Then I stepped out. The room felt bruised. My face, his face, looked peaceful in a way that made me want to vandalize it with a wake. I bent close and spoke to the ear I knew too well. "If you can hear me, squeeze my hand." I slid my fingers into the palm. The skin tried to remember me. Then slowly a squeeze, weak but undeniably mine. A sob climbed my throat, then thought better of it and sat down. "I won't wake you," I said, "but I need to know how to leave." The mouth opened a fraction wider. A whisper leaked out, dry as paper. "Find the seam." "In the mirror. But don't look straight." I faced the dresser. The nick on the mirror's left corner glowed a degree brighter than the rest of the frame, like a healed scar under a lamp. I held up the water glass, angled it to catch the mirror's edge. In the curved surface, the nick became a tiny black mouth. It yawned. I slid the spoon from the glass and touched the nick with the handle's rounded back. A vibration traveled up my arm, a tuning fork shiver that harmonized with the building's endless hush. The black mouth widened, not a hole, more like a crease in a page, lifted to show the printing beneath. Behind me, the breathing changed. The rhythm stumbled. The sleeping chest held its rise and forgot the fall. "Don't do it," my voice said from the bed, louder now, not a whisper but a plea. "If you go through, you might not find your way back to me." "What are we if we never wake?" I asked. "We're safe," it said. "We're kept." The crease widened enough for my fingertips. Cold licked them like winter under a door. The apartment's intercom voice returned, stern now. "It's time to rest." I pressed my hand into the seam. The mirror folded, and the room on the other side unfolded me. And I fell into a space full of beds, one of them occupied by someone wearing my face, who opened his eyes and smiled too wide. The air in the ward felt filtered through damp cloth. Rows of beds stretched in obedient lines, each with a sleeper strapped by a soft band across the hips and a firmer one across the head. Machines perched like birds at the foot of each bed, beaks of wire reaching toward veins. No windows. The light came from everywhere and nowhere, humming at the pitch of fluorescent gilt. A nurse appeared beside me as if the floor had poured her up like syrup. Her badge read, "Wakefulness is duty where a name should have been." "You're early for restoration," she said pleasantly. "I'm visiting," I tried. "Of course," she said as if I'd said I'm a cloud. Her eyes were kind and glossy, the kindness of a poster telling you not to run. "Everyone visits themselves eventually." "Where am I?" "You're where you go when you don't want to wake up," she said. "Or when you can't." I moved down the row. Each face in the beds was almost someone I knew, even when the features were different. The sleeping had pressed them into a common shape. Peaceful, defeated, kept. At the end of the row stood a bed with a curtain half drawn. A shape within breathed like a tide. The shape sat up. It was me, but not the sleeping me from my apartment and not the me walking. This one's smile started too high on the cheeks and ended too soon. He swung his legs over the side like he'd been waiting for a cue. "David?" he said. I didn't answer. "You always get to this part," he continued, conversational, like we were in line at a coffee shop. "You find a seam, you drop in, you think you'll fix it." He gestured around. "And then you see maintenance. Who are you?" I asked. "I'm the version of you that doesn't mind," he said. "I hold the place. I help them when you get curious." "Them?" He nodded toward the ceiling. The hum deepened politely. "What happens if I wake him?" I asked, picturing the me in my bed, the soft bands here, the hospital bracelet there. "You split," he said. "One of you goes thin, one of you goes heavy. Both of you get tired." The nurse cleared her throat without clearing it. "It's time for quiet," she said, like a kindergarten teacher reminding the class that story hour was sacred. "Just tell me if there's an exit," I said. She smiled the way you smile at a tourist asking where the ocean is when they're already on a pier. "There's always an exit," she said, "but it only opens when you're not looking for it." "That's not helpful," I said, and hated how small I sounded. "I can make it helpful," the other me offered. He reached under his pillow and pulled out a small object, a magnet. "Sleep is law." He placed it on my chest and I felt the pull, gentle but insistent, like a promise to return. "Keep that," he said. "It helps the doors know you." The ward lights cooled another degree. Somewhere a lullaby started, just notes, no melody, the idea of comfort played on a tin instrument. "I need to go," I said. The nurse nodded. "Back through the seam," she said. "Before it forgets the shape of your hand." I turned to the mirror I had fallen through. It had become an unremarkable panel of polished metal, reflecting a thinner version of the room. In it, the beds were empty. The machines were moths. The nurse had no face. My other me stood with his head tilted too far to the side, listening to something only reflections hear. "Don't blink when you cross," he said cheerfully. "They love a blink." I pressed the spoon against the panel where the nick should be. The metal yielded like a sigh. "David," the nurse called gently. I looked back. "Do you want us to keep him comfortable?" she asked. "Who?" She inclined her head toward the bed behind the curtain, the bed I hadn't looked into. The shape within lifted a hand that wasn't mine, fingers long, knuckles pale as candles. "I don't know who that is," I said. "You will," she said. The seam began to close, like a mouth embarrassed to be seen. I shoved my shoulder through and pulled the rest of me after. The fall back into my apartment felt like being poured into skin. I landed hard enough that the glass tipped and finally spilled, water spreading in a perfect oval and then retreating back into the glass as if ashamed. The bed was empty. The hospital band lay on the pillow, warm. A note lay beneath it, in my handwriting, but written by a hand that had forgotten how to be mine. "If they come, pretend to sleep. They can't touch what's not awake." The door handle turned, slow and practiced, and a voice that was Mara's and the intercom's at once whispered through the crack. "Time for your restoration." I lay down and arranged my face into the neutral mask of rest. It felt obscene, performing sleep in a place where sleep was law. The mattress welcomed me with the enthusiasm of a host who believes you've finally learned your manners. The door opened on a gentle hinge. Footsteps entered, 2 sets, then a third, lighter, like a child trying to match an adult's stride. Voices murmured. One took the chair by the bed. Another hovered by the nightstand. The small one stood near my knee, breath quick, sweet with the chemical fruit I'd smelled in restoration. "Deep breaths," said the chair, Mara shaded. "In, out." I let my chest rise and fall like a metronome. "He's ready," said the hoverer. The clipboard voice, I thought. The small one coughed. "Can I see his eyes?" "No," 2 voices said at once. Her coolness touched my wrist. The hospital band slid around the bone and fastened itself with a soft click, like a well-bred bite. The small one took my hand, tiny fingers too smooth. "You don't have to be scared," it whispered. The voice was wrong in a new way, like a recording played backward until the words still made sense, but the meaning ducked away. "Begin," clipboard said. Something came down over my face. Not a mask. A presence. It tingled where skin remembers rain. I felt a tug behind my eyes, as if a thread had been found and pulled. "Don't blink," my voicemails had warned. So I didn't. I let my lids stay half-shuttered, lashes shielding a thin slit through which the room went soft focus. Shapes moved. Silver. White. The spoon was lifted. The magnet pressed against my chest warmed until the warmth became a weight. "Count," said Maracher. "In," said Small. "In," said clipboard. "1," said Small. 2, 3. On 3, the magnet pulsed. The room throbbed in time. The ceiling bulged, then corrected itself. The presence over my face leaned closer, curious. I let a tear rise, not from emotion, but biology. It pulled. Perfect. I didn't blink. It slid sideways into my ear, a cold whisper of salt. "His pupils aren't compliant," clipboard said, suspicion threading the words. "Maybe he's very tired," Maracher soothed. The spoon rang faintly, like a glass tapped by impatience. "Proceed," clipboard decided. The presence pressed. The magnet pulled. The band on my wrist tightened in a lover's warning. I moved then. Not a wakeful flinch, just the smallest shift of my fingers, enough to graze the small hand holding mine. The child stilled. Its pulse fluttered against my skin like a moth. "What do you dream of?" I breathed, just a breath, not a voice. The hand squeezed. "A staircase that goes down," it whispered. "But they say there's no downstairs." "Where?" "Under," it said. And I saw, reflected in the tear catching the room upside down, a trapdoor in the floor between the bed and the dresser that had never been there before. Seam. Seam. I exhaled like a man surrendering to sleep. My hand slid along the sheet, tracing the outline of the trap. The magnet on my chest pulsed again, in time with something beneath the floor that breathed. "Stop," clipboard said sharply. Movement. Mara Chair's hand touched my shoulder. Shh, she said. He's drifting. Restrain, clipboard ordered. Soft bands unspooled, fabric that felt like fog braided. They wrapped my hips, my chest, my head. The headband settled across my brow with remembered tenderness. 3 more counts, clipboard said. Then he's ready. 1, Small said. I moved on 1. I rolled into the magnet's pull, not fighting it but aiming it, aligning my chest with the trap I couldn't see except in the tear's upside-down world. The floor sighed. The bed tilted a degree. 2, Small said, delighted. Hold him, clipboard snapped. The bands tightened. The presence lowered. The spoon sang. 3, Small sang. The floor opened. We fell. Not the bed, not the room, just me, slipping through the sheet like a bookmark pulled from a book. The band snapped like cobweb. The headband clattered on the floor above. The magnet yanked like a loyal dog at the end of a leash and then let go. I landed on a stair. It descended into a glow the color of deep water. Each step had a word etched into it. Don't. Look. Back. The air smelled like hospitals and old pennies and lavender, and the first night I moved to the city when everything felt like a promise of a different person I might become. Above, feet scrambled. Voices overlapped, smooth turning serrated. Seal it, clipboard barked. Seal under. The trapdoor slid, but the magnet in my pocket, how had it moved there? Jumped to the iron brace and held. I ran down because down was the only direction I had left. The stairs ended at a door of polished metal with no handle. In the reflection, an exit sign glowed red. In the air in front of me, there was nothing. A voice from the other side, my mother's, definitely hers this time, whispered, David, if you open it, choose which you are. I stood before the door with no handle. It shimmered like memory, real enough to recognize but too soft to hold. The exit sign in the reflection glowed a color red couldn't usually reach, like it had been dyed with regret. Behind me, the magnet clicked once, twice, resisting the closing of the trapdoor above. I didn't know how much longer it would hold. The voice, my mother's voice, was still whispering through the door, gentle as bedtime. If you open it, she repeated, choose which you are. I placed my hand on the smooth metal. No warmth, no cold, just pressure, like it was asking me to prove I belonged here. David, the voice said, tell me, are you the dream or the dreamer? I didn't know anymore. I had climbed out of one bed only to fall into another. One self asleep in an apartment, one awake in a city that didn't blink, one in the under, one walking through seams, and one, maybe, listening now, wondering if this voice meant salvation or final sleep. The door pulsed. Not opened, not yet, but waiting, dreamer, I whispered. Then wake, the voice said. The door slid sideways. Behind it, a hallway of mirrors, tall, thin, curved to catch your image from angles you didn't know existed. I stepped in. Each mirror showed me, but not quite me. In one, I wore a restoration coat. In another, I sat in the ward, gently folding a new arrival's blanket. In one, I was the small voice at the bedside. And in several, I was the one sleeping, eyes closed, mouth whispering truths in my own voice, trying to warn myself. I kept walking. The mirrors began to bend, distort. In one, I saw Mara's face split into 3 smiles. In another, I watched myself lift the spoon, only it bent into a key. A mirror ahead cracked as I approached. The fracture spread from my forehead outward, like a crown. And then I saw the version of me that had smiled too wide in the ward. He stood at the end of the hallway waiting. This time he looked tired. Trade? He asked. For what? You go back. I stay here. Hold the line. You get to forget. What happens to you? I remember everything, he said. Every time. Every mirror. Every bed. Every false waking. I stared at him, at the magnet in his hand, at the spoon tucked behind his ear. Will I be free? I asked. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You'll think you are. He stepped aside. Behind him, the mirrors ended. An open door. Daylight. Real daylight. I ran. The mirrors shivered. My feet struck floor that felt like wood, like home. As I passed the last mirror, I caught my reflection smiling, but my own face didn't. The reflection reached for me as I stepped into the light. I woke in my bed. No lavender. No magnet. No spoon. The mirror's nick was back on the right side. My pillowcase smelled like detergent and sweat. The radiator hissed with ordinary heat. My phone buzzed. 6:07 a.m. A text from Mara. Had the strangest dream. You are running from yourself, I laughed. It sounded like my laugh. Felt like it. The ceiling didn't breathe. The floor didn't hum. The clock ticked like clocks should. Tick, tick, tick. I got up. I touched everything. The doorknob. The bathroom tile. The window. I smelled the cumin from downstairs. Heard the cat yowling in 3B normal. I made coffee. Poured it. Took a sip. It tasted like coffee. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. I checked the mirror. My face, exactly as I remembered it then. I opened the voicemail, my voice tired, quiet. Hey, I think you did it. I think you got out. But they'll try again. If you ever see the magnet or the spoon or hear your name on the intercom, run. Please, David, don't answer the door. I froze. A knock at the door. I didn't move. It knocked again. A voice. Package for David. I crept to the peephole. A delivery man, plain clothes, but in his hand. A spoon. He smiled and tilted his head. His eyes blinked, bottom to top. I didn't answer. The knock stopped. A slip of paper slid under the door. I picked it up. One line, handwritten. Some doors only open when you're asleep. That night I didn't sleep. I brewed coffee at midnight. I paced. I checked every reflection twice, but no one came. Until 3:03 a.m. The mirror over the dresser cracked down the middle. I approached. The crack split wider. A line of light oozed through it. A voice, mine, whispered, "Trade. One last time." I didn't know what that meant anymore. I was tired. My eyes itched. My thoughts blurred. I sat on the bed. My phone buzzed. One new message. From me, they're coming. Pretend to sleep. This time, dream. I lay down. I closed my eyes. I let go. And I dreamed. Of staircases. Of spoons. Of reflections with secrets. Of a world where people blinked the wrong way. Of a hand reaching through the mirror, trying to pull me back, but in the dream, I was ready. I took the hand. I smiled. And when I woke, I was standing in front of you. If you've made it this far, maybe you felt it too. The sense that something isn't quite right. That the world blinks wrong sometimes. That your dreams feel more like memories. And your memories feel like something trying to wake you up. Tell me, have you ever experienced anything you couldn't explain? Something real inside a dream? Comment below. And if you want more stories like this, dark, psychological, and deeply unsettling, subscribe to the channel. Because next time you hear your name whispered when you're alone, it might be your turn to choose. Subscribe, we'll be waiting. In the seams.